Welcome back. We're here on top of Mount Philo with Judy Chaves, who wrote a book called The Secrets of Mount Philo, which I think is especially appropriate right now because this is the 100th anniversary, correct, of Mount Philo?
Right. That's right. 100 years ago, Francis Humphreys donated 150 acres on this mountain to the state of Vermont to be used as a park. And that was the very, very first park that the state was in charge of. So not only is this the 100th birthday of Mount Philo, it's the 100th birthday of the entire Vermont State Park system.
And you chose this spot here in particular on Mount Philo for us to do the interview. Why is that?
So this is one of my favorite little secret spots. First of all, the view is amazing.
Of course.
But the main thing is that these iron railings date back to 1901, 1902. They were put in by Frank Lewis, who was the owner of the Mount Philo Inn. They were put in alongside what we can still see here as part of the original carriage road that Frank Lewis put in, started at the inn, and it wound its way all the way up to the summit. And so these iron railings are one of the few sort of original remains that we can just stand here, put our hands on them, look out at the view, and feel like we're back more than 100 years ago when he first put these in.
What are some of the things that when you were writing your book that you came across about Mount Philo's history that kind of stood out to you that people might be like, oh, that's really neat, I had no idea?
So the main thing that stood out for me was the more research I did and the more reading I did about landscape history in general was that everything that happened on Mount Philo, it's a little microcosm of what happened throughout the state of Vermont and throughout most of the Northeast. So by sort of studying Mount Philo, you get a landscape history lesson for the entire region. Everything that happened here happened on a much broader scale.
And when you think about 100 years for, both Mount Philo but also the state park system as a whole, what are some of the things that, you think need to be thinking about for the next 100 years?
Well, for the next 100 years, we need to think about the fact that places like Mount Philo they're basically loved to death. This place is one of the most popular parks in the state system. And you can see it. Trails get eroded. It's just overused. And so actually they're already starting to look ahead. There are new trails being put in with absolutely gorgeous stonework, and that takes care of any kind of erosion problems. They're going to be redoing some of the main area where people go near the summit. So that's, I think, the crucial question is how do we maintain these gorgeous parks that everybody loves so that they don't love them to death, so that they are still there in 100 years.
And you're giving a talk, I understand, coming up about kind of the history of Mount Philo. What can people expect at that?
So I'm giving a talk at the Charlotte Library. It's going to be Tuesday evening, June 18th, 7 o'clock. And I'm going to be showing old historic photos, comparing them with what the park looks like now. I'm going to be talking about the history, the landscape history of the mountain, within the context of how that's a microcosm of the landscape history of the whole region. There will be things for people who've never been on Mount Philo and things for people who love this mountain, and they'll still be surprised by some of the things they learn. I'm also leading a guided hike for the park. They have a whole bunch of celebratory events for the 100th birthday. And so I'm leading a guided hike up the mountain, showing people all the little secret spots. And that's going to be on Tuesday morning, July 9th. And that is limited to 20 people. And in order to get to reserve a spot, you've got to go onto Eventbrite, and you just look up Mount Philo History Hike, and you'll get yourself a spot on that hike.
Perfect, and we will have that information on our website with this story as well. Judy, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you. Thank you.